have a question if that would be
Yes.
okay. It's about the like in your teachings and of Rudy, the spiritual cannibalism and the the sort of eating of reality. And I just have a question about when and if boundaries need to be placed at certain points, because obviously it's a sort of conscious relationship with reality, but at what point do you need to say, okay, this energy isn't good for me, or I need to put a boundary here, or
Well,
yeah.
as you develop an inner life and as the chakra system gets stronger, you consciously, recognize the vibrations, the energy that come at you from other people. And you consciously can say, no, I don't want that in my life. No. And you can walk, please try and sit still, everyone. And you can walk away from it. So it's not like you're setting up a universal boundary, but it's when you develop a strong inner life, you can see what people are bringing to you. You can see the very nature of somebody else's vibration, who they are, what they are, and what they want from you. And then there's a wonderful positive word in all languages. It's no. I don't need that in my life. And, and when you have the strength inside yourself to say no, what happens is these people usually find somebody else to pick on. They feel the strength inside you that will not allow their negative vibrations to come into you, that won't allow their anger, their vitriol, their, whatever it is, to come into you. And they will look for somebody else in order to spew their, and what they're basically looking for, these people are usually starving to death, and they feed off of other people's energy. So they're looking for people to respond to them, fight with them, or because they take in that energy, and that energy really helps them to develop their life in a strange and very crazy way. So they're like cannibals, they're like spiritual cannibals that eat the energy of other people. And usually when somebody comes at us with something negative, we yell with them, we fight with them, we argue with them. And frankly, from my own experience, it doesn't work. What works is to say, no, I am not your garbage disposal. I am not your tension disposal. Learn how to work on you. You don't have to say this to them, but you can say it to yourself. And that inner strength will certainly deter what they're trying to bring to you. So that's how you set a boundary, because look, everybody's different. I mean, I've told this story a lot, but it's really worth telling again. Years ago, when Rudy got this place in the country called Big Indian, and he wanted to build an ashram there. I had a very difficult winter. This is a long time ago, back in the early 70s. And I had a very difficult winter. I was working, building a business. I was, teaching meditation, hatha yoga, except, it was like an 18-hour day. And I said to him, Rudy, is it possible for me to go up to Big Indian and just chill out for a couple of days? He said, Stuart, that's what it's for. Just go up there, So I packed some things. I got a bus. I went up to Big Indian. I walked onto the ashram grounds, and I went and found a room in the old building where people stayed. And I looked out the window, and there was like an acre of grass that was taller than me. It needed to be cut. And sitting next to this acre of grass was a tractor with some kind of implement attached to it that could cut the grass. I said, Stuart, instead of sitting up here and bitching and complaining about life, and go cut the grass, let your attention go into cutting grass. So I got on this tractor, I started up, I started cutting the grass. I was having a jolly good time doing this, and I could feel all my tension falling away. And suddenly the guy who was supposedly the kind of manager of the ashram there, I see him running across the ashram, screaming at me. So he's a friend of mine too, I mean, so I stop the tractor, I get off the tractor, we're standing there nose to nose, and he's screaming at me. I had done, in the 8 minutes that I was in the ashram, I had done at least 50 things wrong. And he went on, and I just stood there. I did not open my mouth. Ordinarily, this would be the grounds for a fight, a big argument. I just listened to him. I absorbed his tension. I let him. And when he exhausted himself, he looked at me and he started crying. Put his arms around my neck, gave me a big hug and said, "Thank you, Stuart. I just needed to get this off of my..." And it taught me an incredible amount of how hungry people are for somebody to love them. And even the negative stuff that comes out of it is people's hunger for somebody to truly love. Say, it's all right, I can listen to you. Now there's vitriol and there's people that do stuff in very dangerous ways, and they are kind of vampires because they nonstop use other people that way. Those are the people you have to say no to. But if it happens to be a mother who's upset, try to be strong enough to let her just drain her tension out of her. And I mean, it was such a major growth thing for me to see that this guy, all he wanted was somebody to say, look, okay, I will listen to you. I will listen to you. I'm not upset because you're upset. But that's different. I mean, he and I were friends. We went and had a coffee afterwards, and we talked and we laughed. But when somebody is vindictive, when somebody is kind of a cannibal, like a vampire that uses people, in a negative way and drops their tension on them and is always criticizing and this and that. Those are the people you have to be strong enough to say, no, you cannot use me that way. I am not your garbage dump. You understand? I am not your therapist. Go to a therapist and pay $200 an hour in order to get rid of your garbage. I mean, I have enough of my own. I have a life of my own. I need to be respected. Otherwise, I don't need you as a friend or a relation or, I've walked away from relations of mine because they were dumping all their garbage on me constantly. I said, what do I need, My daughter, yeah, she used to, but she doesn't anymore. And you can't walk away from your children. You can't walk away from your parents. So, what you're asking is very important because most of life are people that kind of live like vampires and they use other people to drop tension, to get rid of their negativity, and they constantly do it. And mostly they do it because other people let them do it. That's why they do it. People, oh, I don't want to be a bad guy. You're not a bad guy. You're saying, I am not a garbage dump. Is that clear?
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks so much. Yeah.
Glad to help. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Yeah, hi, Stuart.
Yes.
And I feel that life is accelerating, and there's more synchronicities, just seeing more connections. Is that reflective on the work that I'm doing, or is it also the collective, or there's a shift in the planet?
Hi, Larry, I don't think there's some collective consciousness. I mean, look at the madness going on in the world today between COVID and wars and this. I mean, it's insane. It's you. You are growing. So you can create synchronicity between yourself and everything happening around you. But the world, I mean, look what's going on today. I mean, it's like, you don't even want to look at the media anymore. I mean, today I had to do something. I was in the living room, or I turned the television on. So it was rather listen to the news or watch a Fred Astaire musical comedy. I decided I'd much rather watch a Fred Astaire musical comedy than see people being blown up all over the world. It's your growth that is creating the synchronicity, Larry, not the world. I cannot remember a day in my life where the world hasn't been crazy. Not one day in my life. And I also remember that when I started doing deep spiritual practice, I was able to go above all of that craziness and begin to see synchronicity and attract people into my life who really brought love, who brought kindness into my life. And it changed the way I viewed the world. So I don't think it's the world, Larry. I don't believe in this collective consciousness if most of the world is not doing deep spiritual practice. But I do believe in individuals who can build in themselves systems that enable them to synchronize with a much higher energy in the world. God, call it whatever you want. That energy that is creating everything that manifests on the earth. And they begin to see the sacred nature of everything that's manifested on it, including this insanity that's going on in the Ukraine. That has to teach the world something. None of this stuff works. I mean, we had World War I, we had World War II, we had Korean War, we had, Vietnam, and how many other wars in between. None of it works. And human beings are not developed enough inside themselves to recognize that this doesn't work. But people that have that development learn from these things. And they learn what works. They learn that love is the only thing that works. Kindness works. So I don't believe in this I've heard it all my life, the collective consciousness. I'll tell you a funny story, okay? Years ago when I was running my antique gallery on 13th Street, I had a lot of students. I had students everywhere, that were coming to my meditation classes, actually much more than now, and I had a guy came in and he starts giving me this rap about the harmonic convergence in the Andes and how this, the gurus and swamis and this all going to be there to do a meditation on top of some mountain in Khajuraho. And not Khajuraho, in whatever that place is in the Andes, And I said to him, I listened to a half hour to this guy, patiently listening to him. And I said to him, let me ask you a question. So he said, what? I said, what happens the day after? They said, what, I said, I sit and do my inner work every day of my life. I work with hundreds of people all over the place that do inner work. We connect consciously, we synchronize with each other. I said, what I'm wondering is, you have 1,000 people sitting in Machu Picchu, and what happens the next day? Do these people continue to do spiritual practice? Do they continue, or they come together and it's some convergence and everybody has a good time, drink a few beers and meditate a little bit and, chant some mantras? What happens the next day? Do these people sustain that vibration, that level of spirituality that can heal the world? Well, the guy looked at me, he got really upset. He really got upset, this guy. Never saw him again, which is all right, you know? But I'm just saying, this is my take on things, you know? You gotta do your work every day. That will help you synchronize life, because then life itself becomes one's teacher. And no matter what goes on in the world, you know, and all the horrors that go on, it's your teacher. It's teaching you what not to do, what you have to transcend, what doesn't work. And those are incredible lessons to learn every day. And then ultimately you get to the realization that the only thing that works is people forgiving each other, people loving each other, people that don't need to take revenge, you know, that love each other. And, you know, and of course, this is not easy, because there certainly are a lot of crazy, autocratic type people that live on the planet Earth that don't see anything but power and, you know.
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome. All right. Does anyone else have a question? I mean, look, you know, in 2008, just to finish this, I went to, I think it was 2006 or 2008, I went to Israel, and there was a war going on between the Israelis and the Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. And I was going to take my daughter on this trip, but my ex-wife just freaked out. She said, "Oh, you're not taking her. You're crazy if you go. What? There's a war going on." I said, all right. I really made a decision. I wanted to go there. I wanted to see what it was like to teach Kundalini meditation, yoga, in a place that's at war. And what I discovered was so extraordinary, and Ellie can testify to this. I was staying with Ellie and Eliza, you know, there. And I discovered that Jerusalem was probably one of the most peaceful places I'd ever been in my life. And 100 miles away, there's a war going on. Ellie and I, we would go to all the Arabic restaurants, the Palestinians, the Lebanese, we would eat, and they'd welcome us like we were brothers, you know? You can talk about their mother's cooking in the kitchen. And I mean, it was incredible. It really was one of the most extraordinary experiences of my life, being there while that was going on and seeing how people just live, how they live. And part of it, of course, was me having built a system inside that was capable of seeing that and not going and intimidating people and threatening them, and but going in and say, "Hey, I'm here to eat your food. I really like Palestinian and Lebanese food, and I really do, And I went in there, and it was wonderful. And we spent about a week, 10 days there, and Jerusalem was probably one of the most peaceful places I've ever been. And I remember we turned on CNN and discovered there was a war going on. And Ellie told me this, I'll never forget it. He said, the only way you'll know a war's going on is you got to turn on CNN. And then I remember poor Lisa, her brother was down in Lebanon fighting, and you could see the tension in her, and how deeply she felt about her brother being there fighting in this kind of war that ended in 10 days, 2 weeks or something. And then I wrote a book about it called Light in Jerusalem. It's a very interesting book, but it forced me to do that. I had to sit down and do that because it was such an extraordinary experience. in my life. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Okay, there'll be a meditation on Thursday, same time, and God bless you all. Thank you for being part of this. Thank you for helping me to grow and really teaching me a great deal by your presence here. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody on Thursday. Bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.